I've driven through just about every inch of desert between Utah and Nevada. Empty highways, cold winds, stars so bright you feel like you're floating through space. But that night, something felt different. Something felt off the second I passed Ely around 2 a.m. There was no moon, no radio signal, no lights behind me, no headlights coming the other way. Just me, the rumble of the engine, and the sound of tires kissing pavement under the stars. And then, I saw her. She was standing by the edge of the road, pale legs, bare feet, her body lit up in a flicker of yellow under my headlights. She couldn't have been more than 20. Shoulder-length hair, a 1960s-style sundress, bright yellow, way too clean for the road. No shoes, no bag, no blood, no dirt, just standing there, waiting. I slowed down and eased the truck toward the shoulder. Maybe she was stranded, maybe hurt. Either way, I couldn't leave her alone out there. I leaned over and opened the passenger side door. "You okay, miss?" She didn't speak. She just nodded once and climbed up into the seat. Her skin was cold. I mean cold like she'd been pulled out of a freezer. I cranked the heat and offered her my jacket, but she didn't even flinch. She just stared straight ahead. We drove for miles, no words, no movement. Just the sound of the truck and her pale face lit by the dashboard glow. I tried talking to her. "What's your name? Where you headed? Need me to call someone?" Nothing. I thought maybe she was in shock. I didn't press it. I just kept driving, watching the temperature needle rise as the cab got warmer. That's when she finally spoke. It was a whisper, barely audible over the engine. "He's behind us." I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just pitch-black road and desert behind me. I turned to ask what she meant, but the seat was empty. Still buckled. Still warm. Passenger door never opened. She was just gone. And yet, hanging in the air, was the unmistakable scent of lilacs. Sweet, thick, floral. Like someone had broken a bottle of old perfume and let it linger. I slammed the brakes and jumped out, ran around the cab, checked the road, looked under the truck, opened the sleeper. There was no one. No sign of her. No tracks. No prints in the dirt. Not even a scuff mark where her feet would have touched the step. I climbed back in, locked the doors, sat there for a while, just breathing. Eventually, I pulled back onto the highway. Didn't turn the radio on. Didn't stop for coffee. I just drove. Until the sky turned pale and the sun cracked over the horizon. Now, I still take that stretch sometimes, between Ely and the Utah line. But I never stop. I never open my passenger side door. And I always keep the cab lights on at night. Because that girl in the yellow dress, she's still out there, waiting for the next ride. I'm not even sure if I'm real anymore. Because ever since that night near Amarillo, something's been off. It started at a stretch of highway that I've driven 100 times. Desert, dust, one abandoned gas station that just sits there. Rusted roof, busted windows, the kind of place no one even glances at anymore. But that night, I saw someone. He was standing by the edge of the building with a cardboard sign that just said, "Anywhere." I don't know why I stopped. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I was tired of being alone. Or maybe I've always stopped there. Maybe I always will. He looked harmless. Hoodie, jeans, backpack. Just a kid trying to escape the desert. I let him in. He didn't hesitate. Just opened the door, climbed in, and sat like he'd done it 1,000 times before. And then he looked at me, and he smiled. And he said it. "Thanks, Roy." My whole body locked up, because I never told him my name. I hadn't spoken. I hadn't even looked at him long enough for him to read a badge or paperwork. But he knew it. Plain as day. Roy. I asked him how. My voice cracked when I said it. He turned his head slowly and replied with this eerie calmness. "You told me last time." There was no last time. But the way he said it, not confused, not mocking, just matter of fact, it made me question everything. Did I pick him up before? Was I losing time? Was something happening to me? He started talking more, asking questions. Not small talk, personal things. He asked how my daughter's asthma was doing, if I still lived in the blue house with the broken porch swing, if my ex-wife ever forgave me for what happened in Wichita. I never told anyone those things. Not on the road, not in passing, not even in my sleep. I told him to get out, but he didn't move. He just leaned forward, grinning now, wide and deliberate, and said something that made my blood turn to ice. "Too late. You picked me up again." I pulled over hard, slammed the brakes. I turned to grab him, throw him out, anything to get him away from me. But when I looked, he was gone. The seat was empty. No door had opened. No sound had been made. Just a faint, acrid scent hanging in the cab, like burning plastic. Like an old cord had melted somewhere deep in the dashboard. And then, from behind me, back in the sleeper, a voice. "See you soon." I don't know if I screamed. I don't know if I drove away or if the truck moved on its own. But I didn't stop again until the sun came up and people started appearing on the road. Now, I check that gas station every time I pass it. And sometimes, I still see him, standing in the same spot, holding the same sign, face hidden under the same hood, waiting. And I wonder, if I stopped again, would he smile the same way? Would he still know my name? Or worse, would he be the one standing there next time? If you ever find yourself on an empty road, don't stop, don't speak, don't let them in. Because once you do, they don't always leave when the ride ends. So before the tapping starts again, like, comment, and share this video. And whatever you do, subscribe before midnight. Because next time, when you're tired, alone, and see something standing by the roadside, it might already know your name. It was a quiet morning on the highway, somewhere between Memphis and Little Rock. Maybe 4:30, 5 a.m. The kind of time where the sky is still dark, but you can tell the night's almost over. That gray in-between where the road feels endless and the world hasn't quite woken up yet. I was headed west, keeping steady at about 65, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm and watching the lines on the road roll by. No radio, no traffic. Just me and the sound of the tires humming against the asphalt. There was fog that morning. Not too thick, but enough to hang low across the fields and hug the shoulder. It blurred the trees and softened the edges of everything. I remember thinking it felt like the kind of morning where time slows down a little. Then I saw something up ahead. Just a shape at first, barely visible through the fog. Small, still. It was standing just off the shoulder, close enough that I instinctively eased off the gas. Thought it might be an animal, maybe a deer, or maybe someone with a broken-down car. But as I got closer, my headlights cut through the mist just enough to make out what it was. A child, a little boy, 8, maybe 9 years old, standing there on the gravel in nothing but a pair of shorts, no shoes, no shirt, barefoot and bare-chested in the early morning cold. Arms crossed tightly like he was trying to hold in what little warmth he had left. He didn't move, didn't wave, didn't step forward. Just stood there, still and silent. I pulled over hard, flipped on my hazard lights and got out. The air was damp and cold, and I remember my boots crunching on the gravel as I walked toward him. "Hey," I called out, not wanting to startle him. "You okay? What are you doing out here? You hurt?" He didn't answer, didn't even flinch. Just looked up at me with this quiet, blank expression. His eyes were wide, not scared exactly, just tired, hollow almost, like he was far away. I didn't know what to do. I didn't see a car anywhere. No lights, no houses nearby. Just fog and flat road. I took off my jacket and wrapped it around him. He didn't resist. I guided him gently toward the truck and helped him up into the passenger seat. Turned the heat up, handed him a bottle of water, and sat back down behind the wheel. Still no headlights behind me. No one pulling over. No sign that anyone was coming. The boy didn't say a word. Just sat there quietly, wrapped in the jacket, staring out the window. I kept driving, slowly, watching him from the corner of my eye. At one point, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, just as we passed an old mile marker, he finally spoke. It was quiet. Almost too quiet to hear over the heater fan. "You shouldn't have picked me up." That's what he said. I turned my head to look at him, but the passenger seat was empty. My jacket was still there, lying crumpled like it had just been worn. But the boy was gone. I didn't hear the door open, didn't hear anything at all. Just gone. I pulled over again, checked behind the seat, checked the road, stepped out, looked up and down the shoulder. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished. I got back in the cab, sat there for a long moment. Then I noticed something else. Across the dashboard, there were small, faint footprints. Wet, bare, like someone had stepped there with damp feet. They trailed from the floor mat up to the defrost vent. And just above that, on the inside of the windshield, was a single handprint. Small, perfectly shaped, still there. I haven't wiped it off. Sometimes at truck stops, people ask about it, say it looks like a kid smudged the glass. I just nod, say I don't like talking about it much. And that's the truth. Because whatever that boy was, whether he was real or something else, he got into my truck that morning. And a part of him, whatever it was, never really left. I don't scare easy. Been driving rigs since the late 90s, long enough to see just about everything this country has to offer. Drunks stumbling into traffic, meth heads waving bats on exit ramps, flipped cars still smoking. Hell, once I saw a guy trying to cook a squirrel on a truck stop coffee burner. But nothing, and I mean nothing, ever messed me up like what I saw out on that state highway in West Virginia. It was the kind of night you don't forget. Thick fog, no moon. Just that dead stretch of road winding through the mountains like it was carved by something that didn't want to be found. I was maybe 40 miles from the next town. 3 a.m., silence in the cab, just the sound of the tires and the low growl of the engine. And then I saw it. Up ahead, right in my lane, something white. Small, motionless. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a dog. Then I got closer. It was a baby, swaddled in a white blanket, lying right there in the middle of the road like somebody had just set it down and walked away. My gut went cold. I slammed the brakes, threw on the flashers, and jumped out of the cab. Fog swallowed me the second I stepped onto the asphalt. Everything went dead quiet. No crickets, no wind, nothing but the crunch of my boots and the sound of my own breathing. I knelt down and picked it up. And that's when I realized it wasn't a baby. It was meat. Chunks of it. Raw, bleeding, fresh, wrapped up in a white baby blanket, still warm like it had come straight from the butcher. I dropped it and took a step back. My mind couldn't even process what I was looking at. And then I heard it. Laughter, not a chuckle, not some weirdo hiding in the bushes. This was high-pitched, sharp, twisted. It came from the trees, left side of the road, maybe 20 feet deep. But it didn't sound human. It was like something pretending to laugh, like a recording played at the wrong speed. I didn't wait to find out who or what it belonged to. I ran. I slammed the truck door, threw it in gear, and floored it. Tires screeched, trailer fishtailed, and I didn't let off the gas until the sun cracked the horizon. Didn't stop. Didn't breathe right for miles. When I got to the next town, I went straight to the police station, told them everything, every damn detail. And they looked at me like I was crazy, said it was probably fog and exhaustion, maybe an animal carcass, maybe some prank. But I've seen raccoons, I've seen deer, I've seen roadkill in every shape and size. That wasn't roadkill. That was meat, wrapped like a baby, left in the middle of the road like bait. And whatever was in those woods, it was watching. They never found anything. No prints, no blanket, no blood, not a trace of anything at all. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I don't take that road anymore. Not at night. Not even in daylight if I can help it. Because sometimes I still think about that laughter. How close it was. How loud it got. Like it was right behind me, following me back to the truck.